Today we're going to talk about knives, reduce and refocus. Welcome to the channel. This is Everyday Comfort, and we're going to talk about knives. The reason why we're talking about knives, if you've seen some of my other videos, I am going to be eliminating a number of things in my life that I don't need, that I'm going to reduce and refocus. And some of those were knives. Number one, I should start by saying I'm not a knife guy. I just am not. I have carried knives like on long backpacking trips, or if I'm going someplace where I know that I need a knife. 90+% of the time I have a multi-tool on me or a Swiss Army knife. Having another sort of single blade knife just felt redundant and heavy. When I've gone on trips for backpacking or hiking lately, or in the past few years, 5-6 years, and I want to cut down weight, the first thing that would go would be the knife, because I already had something. The past 6-7 months, I've been really into wanting to get knives, and I've got a bunch of knives, and I still have them, and I want to thank people that are in Whatnot and on Next Level EDC about re-informing me about knives. But now, as I'm sitting down here the past month or so, I said, I don't need a knife. I don't need knives. So I've been getting rid of them. I've already gotten rid of three knives. Two of them were older knives that I had carried for at least 15 years. One was an Opinel 7. It looks like a little dinky knife, but it was one of those knives that I used for a long time and I would carry with me. The other knife was a CRMT M16, and I think that it was like 13M version, and I had that one for like a while, and that knife just looked gnarly. And, it was one of those things you would pull it out, and people would, oh, that's a knife. And there's a whole bunch of, and I'm not going to get rid of this because I've got a lot of sentimental value. It's gone with me a lot of places. You can tell it's pretty well used. But then these other knives are knives that I've gotten recently that I'm deciding I'm just going to get rid of them. I maybe keep one or two of them. They're really nice looking knives. I know so little about them that I put stuff on them just so that I would remember them if I wanted to look them up. Probably the knife that is the least to me is probably this Ganzo Firebird knife. It's one of these knives here that flicks out, and it's a really nice knife for that. It is a locking knife. It does lock well. It does flick out well. It's a really nice knife, but that's probably not me. The ones that are the closest to me in my style is probably this knife, this Samurai, which is, I think, the cheapest knife here. It's probably one of these knives that you can pick up. In fact, I'm sure that you could pick this knife up for like $10-15 in lots of places. But the style of it being all silver, I like the knife part here. It does flick open. It has a lock on it, which all these knives do. It's still a little stiff because I haven't opened it much, but it still works quite a bit. The other knife that I think is really interesting, there are two knives here that I just think are just really interesting to look at. And it might be considered part of my knife, is this CJRB Frack, and it's a nice knife. I like the size of the knife. I like the way it goes. It's a pretty easy knife to handle. You can use it for a variety of things. Oh, I say all these knives here have clips on them except for the buck. I actually still have a sheath for that, which I probably should have brought out. But that's a really nice knife. And like I said, of all the knives here, the only ones that I've used in any regard is this CJRB Frack and this Samurai, which is a cheap knife, which I think was given to me because I purchased some other knives. The other knife that I know is very popular, but it's not me, is the Spyderco Manic. It's a nice knife. It's got this sort of locking and unlocking mechanism. It's pretty interesting where you have to pull it, and sometimes it's a little stiff for me to pull out. Spyderco knives are all interesting knives. It's a nice US knife, and it does a lot of things. It can help with a lot of things. See, it's a little stiff right now because it's mostly because I haven't used it, I think. And my hand's weak because I have a little carpal tunnel. And those two knives I did buy new. The other knife that I had for a long time is this Buck 112. And this Buck 112 is a nice knife. It's probably the knife that I've had the longest. I want to say I may have had this since the 1970s. When you work in IT, that's something that you get. And the Civivi Praxis is a knife that I see with a lot of people. All these flipper knives seem to be very popular. So you get this one and this one right here, very popular knives. They look like Civivi is one of these companies that seem to put out a new knife every month. This is the most intriguing looking knife. I think it's called the Conspirator. And once again, it's also one of these. It's also a similar sort of flip knife off by Civivi. So those are all knives that I'm probably be easy to talk to someone, say, hey, you want a knife? And then either give it to them or sell them on. So as I'm thinking here, I haven't even talked about the Tenable, which is a beautiful color. This micarta color is really great. And how it sort of comes out the blade here, as you can tell there. It's just so interesting. It is one of the most interesting ones that I've seen of come, because it's how the blade is sort of straight and comes to a point. Most knives here, when they come out, they feel like that. They're jumping out. This one actually feels like it's actually was really designed well on the way that it looks like it wants to come out. So those are the knives that I have, and that's my thinking. After going through my thinking now again, I'm going to sell or get rid of them all, except for the buck for sure. I'm going to keep that. I probably should have kept the CRMT M16, but I think that it really was one of those things where you can pass it down to a younger relative, and they would appreciate it the next 20 years. I did tell them to take it to someplace and get it sharpened up, because it hadn't been sharpened in quite a while. That makes a difference. That makes a difference about how it goes. This thing just doesn't flick out the way it's supposed to. Yeah, it's not as I like the color of this, but I'm definitely going to sell this one too. I'm going to sell it. Some of these I'm going to give away. The two that I'm going to definitely keep are going to be these two. This is for sentimental reasons. This is because it's just a basic knife, and I'm not a knife guy. This one I may keep. I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting little thing. I know that the other ones are more like this, a flat color. I don't need a large knife. The interesting thing about the Buck 112 is that the Buck 112 was, I want to say that its predecessor was, I think, a 110 or 111 or something like that. And the Army wanted a knife that was smaller, and so they wanted something that was smaller and lighter for people to carry. If you were to weigh right here, this Buck 112 outweighs all the other ones here. It's a pretty heavy piece of machinery and knife. Just think it was originally created from a much larger knife that was maybe a couple inches longer or an inch and a half longer. Someone in the comments will correct me on that. But that's my thinking. Any comments that you have about this, please let me know. Hey, have a great life. This is Everyday Comfort. See you in the future.